We have the Stawaiszes here. Ray and Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Rudy.
There is a bit of a history behind this interview and how it's came about. Would you like to talk about it?
Rudy, well, I remember when you reached out to me, I don't even know how long ago it was. And you had said, it was at least a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And you said to me, Susan, we tried to get Father Ryan and an interview, and we never quite got it. Wondered if you'd come in and let us interview you. And I said, well, Rudy, it seems like the Archdiocese might be wanting to do a little film about him, so why don't we wait till after that? Mm-hmm. And here we are in the rollout.
It's fantastic. He was so busy serving the people that he didn't have time to do the interview. How has this whole thing been? This whole experience of the whole movie coming out and everything?
Oh my! You want to talk about that, Ray?
It's been a real blessing, and it's a great film of his life and of a person who made a choice to go take a vocation and become a priest. And I think people who see it get a better idea of what it's like to become a priest and get a test on whether they'd like to do it or not.
Mm. Yes.
But we didn't know we were going to be in the movie business. When this all started, because it was only supposed to be a 7-minute clip.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of where it all started, where did y'all grow up? Did you both come from Houston or from Texas?
No, not at all. I'm from Lafayette, Louisiana.
And I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania called Farrell, Pennsylvania.
Did you both grow up Catholic?
Yes, I grew up Catholic. My family was always in Lafayette, never moved anywhere else. And I actually met Ray, who was visiting on work. He grew up in Pennsylvania, right? All Catholic. But we met on a blind date in Louisiana when he was working there for Chevron.
Did you ever have any thoughts of the priesthood?
I had an uncle who was a priest, a Monsignor. I thought about it. I didn't feel a calling. I can't say that I did. But I was an altar server. We grew up in the church. My brother and I, we served, and a lot of times the priests were glad when sometimes we didn't serve because we were a handful of times. But it was my mom was taught, CCD back then they called it that.
Yes.
And for 25 years, so I knew a lot of prayers, and I think I try to keep my faith all the time.
How about you, Susan? Did you think of religious life in any way?
When I was very young, when I was about 10, I went to a Catholic school when I was in elementary, and that was when the nuns were in full habits, head to toe.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. And there was one particular nun that just inspired me a lot. I loved her demeanor. I loved her intelligence. She was very, very bright. And I loved her. She just had a heart for all things about God. You could tell she loved him so much. And I thought about it when I was about 10. I'd stop off. When I'd get off the bus, it was right next to our community church. And I'd stop off into church just to say hello to God. And I don't know why I did it. It's just every afternoon I'd stop off and just say hi, just a couple minutes. And I'd think, why am I doing this? But never really, I think I always wanted to have children. And that was that.
How'd your blind date get set up? Was it a mutual friend?
Yes. I worked in the operating room as a nurse in Lafayette, and one of my good friends had a husband who worked for the service company that serviced Ray's rig offshore. And so I was going to a Christmas party with with all the staff at the hospital, and I showed up, and her husband said, "Where's your husband?" I said, "Well, I don't have a husband. I'm not married." And he said, "Oh, we have to do something about that." And I thought, okay. And then he circled around again 10 minutes later. "Are you sure you don't have a husband?" "No, I don't have a husband." And it got to be a little annoying. And at the end of the evening, he said, "We'll be in touch." And 2 weeks later, he called me on the phone and said, there's this guy who works offshore. I think you guys would like each other. I said, well, have him call me. And then we got together. We went on a double date with them, my friends.
Okay.
And it just took off from there. A couple of years later, we were married and actually got married, and the next day left because his job was then going to be in Aberdeen, Scotland. And so that's how we got there the first time.
Oh, okay. And your boys, were they born in Scotland?
Yeah.
Both of them. Who's older?
Ross is the oldest.
How much older?
18 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So pretty close together.
Very close.
How were they when they were young? Were they inseparable? Did they butt heads a lot, or?
No, Ross is a talker and Ryan is a listener, and they work together. In fact, Ryan, I don't think he said a word for the first 2 years because Ross would tell us what Ryan wanted. And then I would say, how do you know, Ross, that he wants this? And he says, Dad, I know. And this is, Ross is like 2 and Ryan's like 1. And he knew what he wanted. Or Ryan agreed with whatever Ross wanted.
So it's almost as if they were twins.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
People called them, oh, I love your twin boys. They look so cute because they were the same basic size. I had a double stroller also, so that didn't help.
Oh, yeah. Did you dress them up the same as well?
Well, not really, no.
I don't know about that one.
They did have the same haircut for a while. But it was a lot of fun. I think all that kind of went on until middle school, and then they started becoming individuals.
Now, early on, did you think that one or the other would become a priest? Who was the odds-on favorite early on?
Well, Ross is a very individual kind of person. Ryan is more of a thoughtful, more careful about the way he did things. But as a view to a priesthood, I could see either one of them doing it. I wouldn't say, especially today, I would never say one or the other would have been better. But
I think my whole experience mothering the two of them, they always reminded me of one great guy. It's like the characteristics of one plus the characteristics of another, they just they complemented each other. If one didn't do one thing, the other one did. And so I think it's probably one reason why it's kind of tough for Ross right now, because, it was like being separated from your twin, kind of like. And Ross is a beautiful communicator he doesn't know a stranger. So he's got a huge network of people. And that's the sort of priest you like, too, when you can talk to anyone and delve into the heart of the person. And so I think that's why it's difficult for us to decide on a one, because they each had good qualities of a great priest.
So all through high school, their personalities were pretty much like that.
I would say so. They also started, when we lived in Aberdeen the second time, they were in 5th and 6th grade, and the church that we attended was a tiny little church that had a single aisle up the middle of the church. And, I think you could probably fit 70 people, maybe 70 people in the entire church. And there were 6 boys, and those 6 boys, the priest said, come on up, you're going to help me altar serve. And so they did every Sunday for 4 years.
Wow.
And that was kind of, they were still doing things together then, right? Altar serving together. And from that time forward, it was very hard to separate them because they were always loving the same thing.
I can imagine them just standing there because I have nephews, and the 2 of them are like that also. And every once in a while, you see them kind of talking.
Oh, yeah.
Was it exactly the same thing?
Yeah. Very, very much.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So when did you first get any inkling that Father Ryan was going to become a priest?
Oh, gee, Ray, you want to talk
Was
about
it later on still?
Yes.
Or were you blindsided?
No, we were blindsided.
Blindsided.
Totally blindsided.
So Ryan was in college. He had gone through the first battle with cancer, and he was...
And that was in high school?
No, that was in college.
Oh, it was in college when
yeah, 19 years old, a junior. I think he was a junior.
Yeah, he was in the middle of his junior year at
all
Texas
throughout
A&M.
high school, no clue whatsoever about anything with cancer. Was he an athlete?
Very much an athlete.
Was he on like the
he was
varsity
track.
teams and track?
Early in high school, living overseas, you didn't have a lot of experience with sport. You would play amongst there were 26 kids per grade there, so there wasn't a lot of people to play. So everybody kind of played, and really wasn't a lot of intense, great athleticism necessarily, but they played a lot. And so there was no starting football when you're 7 years old, 5 years old, baseball or any of that. There was nothing. There was no competitive athletics until they got to Houston. So here they are in high school beginning athletics. And they were both on a golf team at the beginning because that's what they did in Aberdeen.
Okay, so you can do it
they
alone.
They could do golf, yeah. And they did a little bit of cross country because, well, that doesn't take a lot of, And then the next year they got involved in basketball and track. And Ryan was doing, by his senior year, he was doing varsity basketball. And then in track, he was doing high jump, triple jump, long jump, 440 relay.
Wow.
High hurdles and low hurdles. And he went to a small Lutheran high school in Tomball because Frashati didn't exist at that time. And he went to state in several of those. Of course, it was small, 5, whatever 5A. That division is, the little one. But, I mean, here he is with no experience. Yeah. And Ross was doing similar in that he learned pole vaulting when he was a junior. But he went to state.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were really loved athletics, just didn't have a lot of training, but just threw their heart and soul into it. Really enjoyed the teamwork and competition. And
what was their dating lives like in high school? Was it a lot of sleepless nights and worrying about a couple of handsome guys? Well, athletic too.
Yeah, well, and they got into government, student government. They both ran for offices, and they were both in different organizations and stuff. And Ross was he got there at the end of his in his sophomore year, and he was actually class president in his senior year. So it's like, what? But they were very interested in people, again, getting to know folks. It's a little bit different in Texas because, a lot of kids have gone to school ever since the first grade. And here they were trying to break into the scene in the middle of high school. Yeah. And, everybody
Ryan had a girlfriend.
Yeah, Ryan had a girlfriend.
Ross had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And not very many sleepless nights. And
did you think that they were, did it look like they would end up together?
Ross dated different people, and Ryan actually dated the same gal for, I think, 2 or 3 years. They were continued to date in college.
Did they talk about marriage eventually?
I don't know that they did because it was early in college, freshman or sophomore year, that Ryan kind of said, I don't know if, he told me later he wasn't sure if God was calling him to married life, but he didn't say anything more. He just kind of wasn't sure.
What was the first sign that he was sick?
He had a lump on the back of his hip, and he noticed it right when he went back to A&M in his junior year. He thought it was a pulled muscle, and then he'd go to physical therapy, and then they kind of worked on him a little bit, and then after about 6 weeks, he called me on the phone and said, "Mom, it's not going away. I think it might be something else." So he came into Houston, and we went to our sport med guy, and he did a few tests and said, "Yeah, I think it's something else. I need to move you on."
And then you got recommended to more and more specialists.
He stepped out, and he had lots of treatment, major surgery in that spring.
Okay.
And then he went back in the fall. No, he went back the next spring. So he was out a full year and finished his junior year. And then he had another year in his senior year. So in his second junior year, so to speak, he was having to return back on crutches. He had to wear them for 6 months for his surgery to set. He had pelvic surgery that took out bones and put back bones. And
What kind of cancer did it first turn out to be?
he had a sarcoma, which was really rare.
Uh-huh.
In the movie Love God's Will that's just released out, they actually interviewed his orthopedic surgeon.
Oh, really?
And she talks about it in the film. Yeah. So I learned some things listening to her in the film that she hadn't told us before.
Okay.
Just little things like it was a really, really rare type, and it was also really rare for it to be in the pelvic area. And and then the fact that it actually metastasized in the 9th year after he was all clear was super rare as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
he was on the most dangerous chemo you can have.
Oh, really?
And for a few more treatment cycles than would be recommended. You know what I mean? They all have the recommended limit. And he was on the hard stuff.
Because it was such a rare
Because
form.
it was such a rare form, yeah.
Okay.
And in his radiation, the same. And the surgery, they basically reconstructed his pelvic area so that
Oh, wow.
how you would be able to stand, you have pelvic wings on your hips, these wings. Well, they removed half of one on one side and then took one of his leg bones, his fibula, and reconstructed a strut to sort of give him stability in that area. So basically,
He had to learn to walk again.
100%. Yeah.
And he was still able to play in the pre-seminary basketball game.
I know it.
And slam dunk.
And slam dunk, yeah. Yeah. So
Really?
it was
He slam dunks?
at the end he did. Yes.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. He was determined. He wanted to do it. And he we got something from Amazon, these little weights. I said, Ryan, what's this all about? He goes, oh, Mom, I'm gonna increase my vertical leap. I said, okay, how does this work? Well, you put these little weights around your ankles. You do these exercises, and you know. And I said, okay, good luck, buddy.
Wow.
And lo and behold, he did it, and he got to where he could slam dunk.
Were there any signs that that he was considering entering the priesthood?
I think we were just totally delighted that Ross and Ryan were both continuing to practice Catholicism. Going off, there's been a lot of kids back out, and we had no inkling. Whenever they came home, it was still every Sunday that they were visiting, on our knees, saying the rosary before we went to bed. It was, all the practices were still there.
Did they go to the same school?
They both went to A&M.
A&M, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the one thing I would say was, so Ryan was he was diagnosed with his first bout of cancer, but before he wanted to start treatment, he wanted to do the Aggie Awakening. He was playing.
Can I tell the story? Okay. He was. We were in the oncologist's office the first time we ever went to the oncologist. Okay. And she's telling him the news that she'll send him to MD Anderson for further evaluation. And we walk out of her office. He said, "Do I have to go now?" And she said, "Well, no. You can go later in the week." And he said, "Oh, good. I need to go back to A&M." And I thought, what's going on? So we go out into the car park, getting in the car to go back home. And I said, well, what's going on? He said, oh, well, I'm on the drama team at the Aggie Awakening. And I said, oh, that's cool, Ryan, but you've never been on a drama team in your life. What do you guys...
That's a retreat?
Yeah, it's a retreat. Okay. They have 300 student retreatants, 300 staff,
oh wow,
and 300 intercessors.
Oh, so this is huge.
Huge. It used to run quarterly. I don't know what the schedule is now. I tell everyone when you go to college there, please get on the wait list because it's usually a year before you get on. So anyway, so he says, yeah, I'm on the drama team. And I went, okay. He says, yeah, and I've got the lead role. I said, cool. What are you guys doing? Oh, we're doing the Passion. And then I went, okay, I think everything's going to be okay because he's playing Jesus and he's excited. And yeah. So I said, I want to know how that goes.
So he purposely put on hold his treatment for a few days because he wanted to make sure that he serve the people.
Right.
Wow.
And at the end of it, I talked to him after it was all over, and I said, "How was it?" He goes, "Mom, trying to play Jesus and trying to get..." There was somebody ahead of him, friend of his, Jason Alamon, who had played Jesus the time before. And so he was sort of his, mentor in it. And he would help Brian with positioning, facial expression, this and that, just to try to give him feedback on what it was, because when they would do practices. But he said the real thing, he said, I felt myself sort of relaxing into this position of trying to take on the person of Christ. And he said, as I played it, it's like it got deeper and deeper, and people would come up to me after and just make comments, "Oh, that was wonderful," or this or that. But some people would ask me questions. And I found myself wanting to stay in that persona. Like I found myself really wanting to stay in that moment because it was so perfect. It was so peaceful. And he said, it's really hard to be that person.
Oh.
It's really hard to stay there because you come back, right? Your persona comes back. But he said, but that's what Jesus calls us to be. He calls us to be him. And he said, but it was really tough. And I thought, at that moment, I went, whoa, I need to pick up my game. 20-year-old telling me about this, right?
But that's what you want for your kids.
Sure.
You want them to be better than you.
No kidding.
Oh, wow. That is fantastic.
So that was the first sweet moment of, especially on the day that we're finding out that we're embarking off on this amazing, I have no idea what the next day's bringing, right? The calendar totally emptied.
Had he already broken up with the girlfriend at this point?
Yes.
Okay. So that opens up more, ideas of, this might. So when did he break to you the news that he was thinking about it? Was it after that first, set of treatments?
Well, no, it was after he got an all clear. And he actually went back to school, finished his degree, and he got a job offer from a company. He was a petroleum engineer, and they were in desperate need for petroleum engineers. And he came home, and Sue can tell this story better, but basically he had his job offer in his hand, and I said, "Oh, is that the job offer?" And he said, "Yeah." And then he said, "But I'm really not sure I want to accept it." And I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And he said, "I think God's calling me to be a priest."
And that was the first time.
That was the first time.
And then
Was
they
this
went out for a long
home?
talk.
Yeah, I was at home.
So you're sitting down at home and, wow.
I'm sitting there on the couch and raising a chair to my left and Ryan's to my right, and I'm watching this go on, and I went, "Oh, this is big. Oh, this is big." Yeah. And that was it.
What was
time.
your first thought?
Well, my first thought was, a delay. And then, wow, did I just hear that right? And we were delighted. But it was, you can imagine the shift in dynamics in your head in that moment, that all of a sudden you're going now 180 degrees in a different direction,
Yes.
But, it was cool.
Because, as parents, you imagine what their future is going to be like, right?
Yes.
Oh, they have kids or have a family, what kind of parent they're going to be. But this time you're thinking, oh, priest.
Well, I'd said a follow-up question of mine was, "Son, I don't know if God really is expecting you to give your life as a priest because you won this battle with cancer." And he looked at me and he said, "Dad, it's not me wanting to do this." He said, "I'm being called."
Wow. Wow.
So how do you handle that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he didn't really talk to us about it. He wanted to discern it on his own.
Okay.
And that was some follow-up conversations months later, he just wanted to discern on his own.
Do you know if he talked to your parish priest? Your pastor at the time, or did he go?
I don't think so. I know he was doing spiritual direction up at A&M.
Okay.
Because that's what they do. A lot of different priests come in from different religious orders and stuff. And I know he'd been doing that for at least 2 years. And so I know when he reached out, I think he reached out from that point to Father Dat.
Okay. And so Father Dat was the vocation director at that point.
Yeah, in Houston, yeah.
Wow. Did he ever consider, do you know if he ever considered an order?
Yes, he did. The guy up at A&M, the priest at A&M, was actually a religious order priest, the Legionnaires of Christ. And he had wanted to check him out because, of course, this priest was a great guy. And we ended up, when Ryan graduated, we said, well, where would you like to, is there someplace you'd like to go for graduation? We can, a trip or something. And he said, well, this priest at A&M's doing a pilgrimage to Holy Land. Can we all go as a family?
Oh, wow.
And we had never been. And we went, and it was the most amazing trip. I recommend to everyone to go to the Holy Land because it changes when you're listening to the readings of the gospel and everything. It changes because you know now where Capernaum is. You know where those trees are. You know what Gethsemane looks like.
Your feet are there
Your feet
on
are
the
there.
soil.
Yeah. Yeah, you're looking at the Sea of Galilee,
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was, the four of you went together.
Yes.
Wow, that's fantastic. At what point did he say, I'm definitely going into the seminary?
Well, do you mean into St. Mary, into diocesan?
Yes, or any type of religious life.
Yeah, well, he, when we came back from the Holy Land trip, he had said to us, I have it set up where, I think it was 5 or 6 days after that, he was going to the Legion of Christ seminary campus up in Connecticut, where they have these sort of discernment type things.
Oh, so like a come and see type thing.
Yeah, a preliminary thing, but it actually, I can't remember the name of what they call it, but it actually is for several months.
Oh, really?
And so the idea is you go there and you live the life of a priest, so like, what the schedule would be and sort of fully immersion into it. Develop your spiritual life and all kinds of activities and things. What is the day in the life of one? And then you come back home in August, and the idea is you tell your parents, well, yes, I'm going to the religious order. I'll be leaving in 2 days, or I've decided not to, and, And so I had just finished caring for him for, a year, and then him going back to school on crutches for 6 months, and then going back for the next year, senior year. And so I was very attached to the whole idea of his care and concerned about him.
So was he in the Holy Land in crutches as well? No? Okay.
No, just before he graduated.
So going back to him coming back from that religious order.
Yeah, so he walked into the house, which I was a bit, I was like, gosh, if he goes to a religious order, I'm going to only see him 2 days a year. They come back to visit their family just on your birthday, basically. And so they come back on my birthday, and then he come back on Ray's birthday. And I didn't know what it was all about, but I knew I wouldn't see a lot of him. And I had actually talked to a family friend who is a priest, a beautiful priest, and I had said to him, gosh, Father, I've been carrying him for such a long time, and the idea of not seeing him, I just don't know if I can, I don't know. God will have to do a work on my heart for me to be able to.
Well, especially after taking care of him through cancer.
Oh, I know.
Through that,
I know.
all of those treatments and the surgery and the crutches.
I know.
And then the possibility of him joining a religious order and just.
I know. And so he said, Susan, give him to God. Just pray about it. We'll see what happens. And when Ryan came back, I actually physically felt myself doing that. I just said, it wasn't me that could do that, right? You have to say, Lord, please give me the strength to do that. And I ended up, the conversation that we had when he got home was, he told Ray, I decided, Dad, that I don't want to go to the religious order. I decided I want to be able to hunt and shoot with you and Ross whenever I got some time off. I'd like to spend it doing that. I'd really like to be home with the family on holidays, and I just really want to be able to be in a mission. I thought I wanted to be with a mission order, but I look at Houston, and there's so many different mission fields in Houston that I think I could find something that would anywhere would really be good. He said, I think God made me an engineer because there's lots of engineers in Houston that I could, help to minister to, you know?
Yeah.
And he said, but more than anything, I want to have a parish.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
He started with that.
Yeah.
Not that he wanted to go hunting and shooting.
Yeah.
So the most important thing was the parish.
Yeah. Parish life.
Yeah. I mean, the legionnaires they could go anywhere. There was, very little, I guess, grounds. You're never, you could be moved any place, any time. And they were raised moving around with me in my job. And I think he felt he wanted a grounded place. He wanted a place he could
truly
call his own.
He was done moving around.
Yeah. I think that was a little bit more of it.
How did Ross take the possibility of him being gone and only back twice a year?
I don't know that I remember him being a part of that, because actually at that time, Ross was away. He was working in Louisiana, and then he was working in Brunei, a little bit in Japan, and went up to Alaska. So he was enjoying the, being able to travel with his job. And then when I got sick, it was time for him. He felt like it was time for him to come back home, and plus, he wanted to marry a girl from Texas because he wanted to be able to grow up next to family and grow up next to her family.
Okay.
Because, of course, with us traveling international so much, he never saw my parents a lot or Ray's parents a lot. And I think he wanted to make that more nuclear,
Yes.
So that was his goal.
So you said you got sick. Is that how you lost your arm?
Yes. Mm-hmm. That was 8 years ago.
Was that cancer as well?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a lymph node under my arm, and it kind of wrapped around some nerves, and that lost function in my arm. But it was also getting to the point to where it was getting a little bit out of control. And finally, I did some experimental stuff down at MD Anderson, and none of it really worked. And I found this beautiful surgeon at Methodist who took off my arm. And I am forever grateful for that, because, boy, the timing was perfect.
So in terms of timing, you said, where was Father Ryan in his, discernment, his path to the priesthood at that point when you had lost your arm?
He was in seminary. He was in seminary in Covington.
So a couple of years only into it?
Yeah. He was away, and Ross was away, and I was here, and Ryan had just come. In the course of the treatment that I was going through, Ryan finished at St. Joseph, and it was on his way to St. Mary's. And actually, when I started the treatments, it was a summertime where he was supposed to go on his, how they send him away to Mexico or Guatemala or somewhere to do their immersion, Spanish immersion?
Okay.
He was getting ready to do that, and I had just found out that I was going to start radiation treatments. Ray was still working, and Ryan on his own talked to his spiritual director and to the rector at the seminary and said, can I go ahead and stay home with Mom and, help her out this summer? And I'm sorry, it wasn't the Spanish immersion one. It was some summer assignment where he was starting to learn about pastoral care, something like that. And his spiritual director said, I can't think of a more perfect thing for you to do to learn pastoral care than to take care of your mother. Yeah, we cried about that and laughed about that because I was taking care of him. He was taking care of me. It was going back and forth.
Oh.
And we were just laughing and crying over the fact that he was so selfless that he did that for me.
So he lost a year in seminary? Or
No. It was just a summer assignment that he was scheduled to do downtown somewhere. And they let him substitute taking care of me and running me around and being my chauffeur and my kind of caregiver, during the day while Ray was at work.
Wow. So he went back into seminary.
Yeah.
At any point, did you think, he might discern out, or did it look like, oh, no, he's going to go all the way with this?
I think at different times, all of the seminarians are discerning, right, throughout the entire process. And I don't know of many seminarians who are, from the very moment they enter to the very end, that they're solid 100%. I'm not saying I don't know any, because I know of one right now. I would say Luis is that way. Luis Armas is getting ready to get ordained.
Yes.
And he has been a solid, I'm so waiting to be a priest. I can't wait for it to be a priest.
We had him on the show, and
Yeah, I love that guy. He's actually from our home parish, St. Anne and Tomball.
Beautiful. Everything's beautiful.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
So Ryan, I think, was, that was the path he was on. Yeah, we think about things, but I don't think he ever veered off of it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Did any friends or relatives say, "Oh, we knew he was going to become a priest"?
Well, Lee.
Oh gosh, I had a dear friend, Lee Williams, was married to Lee Williams. They were both. One was named Lee, and she was Mary Lee, and he was Lee. And back when Ryan was a sophomore, and we had just basically been in Houston for 1 year. This is back in 2005. I had just met Lee. They had a little coffee shop in Tomball, and I had gone in with a friend of mine. And they're the kind of people that come to their customers and talk and, drum up a conversation. And I had mentioned that my kids went to Concordia down the road, and that he says, "Who are your children?" And I said, "Oh, Ross and Ryan." "Oh, I know them. They come in here. I've served them smoothies before." And then he said, "Now your son Ross, I see him as a warrior. And your son Ryan, I see him as a holy man." And okay, so Lee and I became friends. And as time went on, and as Ryan went to seminary, which was so amazing, but he saw him enter seminary, but he died before he became a priest. And I think sometimes I'll actually say, "Hey, Lee, you see that?" Or at ordination, I was like, "Hey, Lee, you watching this?" Because the crazy thing is that Lee and Lee were actually converts. And when they converted was while the time that Ryan was in seminary. And so they went on to teach RCIA and to be a part of Acts retreat teams and stuff out in Kerrville. And so their view of an ordination would have been so much bigger than the first time they ever met Ryan. They really came to love the Catholic Church so much.
Tell me a little bit about the process from the parents' perspective of your son entering the seminary. Did Father Dad call you up and have a meeting with you? Any private conversations? Did you call him up?
No, but
did you say anything?
But we spoke. I mean, it's not like you're segregated. So we would be down there. We would go to Mass at St. Mary's, and we get to see him, and you get to talk to the guys, and he would bring seminarians home, and and you would bump into the different priests that were there and teaching, and the spiritual director. So we, you had a relationship. It wasn't terribly close, but certainly when we'd see a priest there at St. Mary's, they would, we'd say we're seminarian Ryan Stawaisz parents. They would always, tell us how he was doing and what's going down, and those kind of things. So,
but it wasn't part of the process of him entering.
No.
It was strictly him, the man. What we did notice, what did happen though, was we received a survey on email, and Ray received one and I received one as parents of newly started seminarian. And it was, I want to say it was from something like Catholic University or somebody must have been doing a dissertation or something on home life of seminarians. Or I'm not real sure who it was from. It looked official. I didn't mind the questions they were asking. So, but some of the questions were, do you attend Sunday Mass with your family? Do you attend Holy Days of Obligation? Do you pray morning prayer, or do you bless your meals before you eat? You know, kind of traditional things, evening prayer. But then it went on to, do you do Bible studies? Do you talk about the saints? Have your children been on retreats? And it just went down this list. And I did mine separately from Ray, and I talked to him about it after, and it was like, did you find yourself checking off all the boxes? And we both said, yeah. You know, we kind of thought this was kind of a Catholic lifestyle. You know, now, mind you, we didn't do Bible studies and retreats until we came to Houston. They weren't really available. But still, I didn't do my first women's retreat until I was in my 50s, which I regret. Wished I'd started earlier. But we were surprised as we took that survey that, wow, maybe we were doing a few things, you know, like our parents had taught us. And I wonder what the statistics are out there of other, you know, families. And
that would be interesting data to look at. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. So this whole process, I guess it's probably because he was, you know, he was already an adult. He had graduated, so you didn't have to. Perhaps it's different from somebody who's just coming out of high school. Maybe the process is different. Yeah,
I bet it is. Yeah.
How was he with his other classmates? You said they would come to the house every once in a while.
Oh, gosh, they had so much fun. Yeah,
what were they like as seminarians?
Oh, so much fun. We wished we could have them more often than we did. They're super busy. Not only are they in class, but they actually have assignments. So they might be assigned to a pair, depending on the year that they are in seminary. They might have an assignment to go to a church and help with catechism classes or RCIA. They might be going to maybe work at Magnificat House or some, you know, Juan Diego Center or somewhere. You never knew, but every semester they had something to do outside of all of their schoolwork and outside of all of their seminary chores that they had to do around the place. So between all of that, trying to get home to mom and dad was, you know, we'd always entice him with either, want to bring somebody along, you know, we'll have Thanksgiving dinner, or...
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Taking them out to dinner, you could get them to go.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they were, you know, eating seminary food was great food, but it was still seminary food. And when we could say, hey, we could go eat Chinese, okay.
Yeah,
or something like that, you know, so we could get them.
Was it how big was the troop?
I think the most we ever had was 20.
Oh, wow. 20 guys.
I think the most we ever had was 20. It was interesting because the place that we lived at, there'd be a basketball goal early on. They'd shoot some hoop. They'd, you know, chill out. We had a pool in the backyard. You know, they'd chill out on the patio and just get to chat and, you know, do nothing, just sit and chat. But I have talked to other moms of priests, like Valerie Moses, Father David Michael Moses' mom. And of course, they live on the Bay area. So they'd go down there and kayak and swim and do all those kind of fun, you know, water sports stuff and play music and all that. So I love being able to provide space, you know, and we still talk about it now. We still try to team up with some of our parishioners up at St. Anne to try to get some of the guys up, especially since we knew Luis, you know, try to get him to come up. We want to get to know them better. It enriches your life when you have seminarians in your life, especially if you have children. Right?
Do you have like a group of parents that get together every once in a while? Or is it just on your own, you just make friends?
We actually have a couple of, we're on a Teams of Our Lady, a tool team in St. Anne. And sometimes these folks, you know, the couples will get together and say, okay, we're going to have some seminarians up. We've done that a couple of times. I'm also involved in the Sarah Club, and there's some folks in the Sarah Club that like to get together and go down to the seminary and do things with them. But we'll do it any way we can.
But is there any like a support group for parents of seminarians?
No, there's not. And Valerie, Moses, and I have been trying for years to start one. And we're getting to the point where it's kind of cool that there's moms of priests and seminarians that sort of have a Facebook page, and we'll try to look at the calendar of the seminary and see when there's an open mass where they might invite the public and also like a little reception after or something. So we try to tag onto that. And if any moms of priests or seminarians are listening to your show, I would love for them to call me or call the seminary and say, look, I heard about this. I want to be involved, because I've talked to so many moms and dads who have said it made such a world of difference when my son entered seminary to be able to call you and talk to you about things, because you don't really get a lot of information, when they're going away.
Oh, yeah.
And first starting off. It's kind of like sending them to college, but, you don't have a friend to call and ask, hey, what's this about? And they rely on the guys to take care of themselves, which is right. But there is a transition to the parents as well. And so to try to fill that gap, and we're really happy to do that.
Oh, that would be awesome if you can get that really off the ground. Yeah. Have you ever had any other parents who really were against it and talked to you about it? Like, they were struggling with their son, maybe an only son or something like that.
Yes. I first had that experience myself with another person who approached me and said, oh, I heard that Ryan's all clear of cancer. And I said, yeah, we're really excited. And she said, but I heard he's going to seminary, and I'm sorry, for you. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, you're not going to be able to have grandkids. And I was very kind of taken back by that a moment. And I said, Holy Spirit, please help me answer this question, so I can be gracious about it.
Yeah.
But what I said is, first of all, Ryan's on the planet, and I thank God for that.
Yes.
And second of all, he wants to work full time for God. And who am I about that? You raise children, you never know who you're raising. That's the story behind that, right? You never know. So, and
but we have had. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, but on a personal basis, as far as parents who haven't wanted their children to go forward in this, I know that statistically, a lot of parents are very reluctant for their sons or daughters, entering religious life, and they feel that. They tell me that they feel like the idea of grandkids and what they saw as a legacy, and that sort of thing, and the missing of their children, missing them, and for holidays and things. And I say, you just have to adjust. Christmas Day is, you still go to Mass, and maybe Christmas Day is not the day you have your dinner. Maybe you have it a couple days earlier, a couple days later, right? But that, his life and what he's doing, it's, if they look at it, people who are in the military are gone for a really long time.
Yes.
I mean, there's other jobs. This isn't the only job that requires their time 100%, right? But as far as the children go, I remember the spiritual director of Father Ryan, when he first started seminary, he came up to us and said, oh, hi, you're the parents of Ryan. Oh, I've been waiting to meet you. He says, I'm so delighted. I always love meeting the moms. I want to tell you, you're getting ready. Your life is getting ready to change. You're going to have hundreds and hundreds of spiritual children. Your life is going to be so full. And he was so right. He was so
You're
right.
about to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that we have had seminarians tell us that their dad or their mom was dead set against them being there, and we've had one or two that their families more or less wouldn't provide financial support because they were headed in seminary. So it made it, a real challenge for them to even be there. So, but those guys, God's calling. It's not, if it's a true calling, that's what they're going to do. And And the guys that we know have made it through. So,
and sometimes their parents, after seeing how happy their sons are and how fulfilled they are, and that they realize that whatever they were going to do, they say that, oh, that wouldn't have been the right choice. There are, parents that come around.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of priests on the show who've said something to that effect.
Yeah.
Was there ever any point where you had to sort of mourn grandchildren you weren't going to have from Father Ryan?
Because Ryan was so close to death, I was just happy he was here.
Mm.
And maybe that was a unique situation for me.
Uh-huh.
I think that took more precedent than anything else. And the idea, if I had anything lingering in there, Father Finio, the spiritual director, when he told that to me about the spiritual children, it just, whatever might have been there was dispelled, because the seminarians sort of become our sons. Mm. When we go down there to visit, or they're just so gracious, they're so kind and loving to us, and they just really become our sons. And some of them were closer to than other ones, and the ones that particularly of Ryan's class, we were close to them, but now more than ever, because he's gone, they just are so generous and reach out to us. Particularly around his birthday or on the day that he died, we will get lots of text and calls and things just saying, I'm praying for you. I said my Mass for Father Ryan today, and I mean, it's just wonderful.
Was it your experience the exact same?
Yes. Yeah. It's, there was no time that I would ever see that having children, him not having children would be a negative impact to our family, and that, looking at how he was working through it and how happy he was in seminary and everything, just brightened my day. I never even thought of that.
So he was given the all clear. And so how many years was it before?
9.
Before it came back? 9.
Yeah.
So he went through all of seminary with nothing.
Yeah. Up to a month of ordination.
Yes. I remember that, the Mass at St. Faustina, because he was at our parish when he made that announcement, and there was like a gasp. Not even a gasp. It was just a silence. Like, did he just say what he said, that it came back? Yeah. What was the first sign that it had come back?
See the movie. No. He was short of breath. It actually metastasized in the pleura of his lungs, of his one lung.
Okay, so he was short of breath without having done anything physically.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like progressively getting worse, and that's when he noticed? Is that what happened?
While he was sleeping, if he was laying down, the I guess water filled up in his lung, on the area around his lung, and it made it hard for him to breathe, and we'd wake up short of breath.
Wow.
So they went to the doctor, and the doctor said, yep, you got something there. We got to look at it again. So that's when he started he started his first chemo treatment actually the week before ordination.
Oh,
so
really?
If you look in the ordination movie, when you're watching the ordination movie, or there's a video of his first Mass at Faustina, you can notice the difference in his hair started to fall out.
Oh, wow. Between that point. Wow.
Yeah. I think there were 77 priests at ordination. I could have that number wrong, but there was a lot of priests. And I thought I remember counting them. And as part of the ceremony is the priests come up one at a time and lay hands on every seminarian that's going to be ordained that day. And they give a blessing. And so there's the line of 77 priests coming along, and he was noticing that as they would lay their hands on him and then they'd lift off, some of the hair would fall in his face.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then, 77 times. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But it was, it was part of the drama, right? The day was long enough as it was.
Yes.
He was super weak from the chemo and, yeah.
And he's, he had to go through all of that, the kneeling the entire time.
I know.
Wow. I'm sorry. I'm just
No.
speechless right now just thinking about that because
Yeah.
it gives a whole different view of what happens because it's hard enough just
Yeah.
kneeling for that period of time.
Well, they start very early in the morning. They have practice days before.
Mm-hmm.
They have all this prep going on, planning parties and planning, ordination parties after and before and this and all the just where am I going to be,
It's like wedding prep.
It
the whole
totally is
thing.
wedding
Yeah.
prep. Absolutely.
Vocation.
It is. Yeah. And so there's mentally and spiritually and physically and emotionally so much going on just like for your wedding day. And to have on top of that, this
Yes.
after 9 years thinking you beat it and, the drama in your own heart about all of that.
Wow.
But-
and I'm still processing that they reconstructed his pelvis and he was kneeling like that.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, I remember him at one of the retreats at St. Faustina because my wife and we volunteered and he was playing basketball with the boys and he was in his, collar with the leather shoes and everything running around with those teenagers and that's not easy.
No.
Yeah.
The teenagers, they've got so much energy. And wow, even with that reconstructed hip. And
He was 3/4 of an inch shorter on that side, and he had a lift on his right
Yeah.
his right foot. If you ever look at his shoes, one was normal and one we had to have lifted.
wow.
So when you look in the movie, they'll show a pair of his sandals. And if you look real quick, you can see it.
Wow. I'm sure if you look at like some of the videos as well that that they have online
Sure.
with ordination and all of that.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe even in the footage of the basketball game too.
Yeah, his basketball shoes were mended.
Wow. So he goes through the whole ordination. What did he do after that? Because there's I think about a month period before he reports to his assignment.
He did chemo.
It was just all chemo. There was no going out or going to the beach or visiting relatives. It was all chemo. Wow.
I think so, Ray. Was there anything else?
Did we go to Lafayette to see your dad? I think we said a mass there.
Yes.
Did we go there?
Yes. He went and, we said a mass for my dad. My dad wasn't in great shape by that time.
Okay.
And in Lafayette. And when you speak about parents, it's also grandparents that have negative things to say when you enter seminary.
Okay.
So my dad was very proud of Ryan for becoming a petroleum engineer. He was very proud of that. And when Ryan said that he wanted to be a priest, he said, Ryan, why do you want to waste your life?
Oh, wow.
And Ryan very politely replied, Papa Sam, this is what God wants me to do. And he still said, well, I think it's a waste of time. And this went on for years. My dad held that same position until Ryan was actually ordained a deacon. And we came over to visit him. And Ryan was wearing his clerics.
Uh-huh.
When he got ordained a deacon, he said, now I am ordained into, I will wear my clerics. He wore them all the time, which I was so incredibly proud of him for doing that because not everybody does. And when we were visiting him, there were some caregivers there at the house because my stepmom, Kay, had Alzheimer's and my dad needed help with the care. And all of these women were of a Protestant persuasion of some kind. And there were 2 or 3 of them on the 2 different days that we were there that actually approached him and said, do you have a few minutes I can talk to you about my daughter or my son or some? So here he is, visibly present, right?
Yes.
And they don't care who it is. He looks like a holy man or whatever they thought. And my dad watched that. And he looked over at me. I was sitting next to my dad and he said, he looks happy. Is he happy? I said, yeah, Dad, he is happy. He goes, okay. And So my dad ended up dying before Ryan was ordained a priest, but I think he came to appreciate his call.
Did any other relatives say anything of that sort? No.
No, Ray's mom was super excited. She had a relative, of course, that had been a priest, so she was used to always having a priest around the house. Ray's dad had already passed away, and all of Ray's families, stayed close to the church. And we just didn't have. Everybody was, Ryan, good job. They were happy.
Now, you told a story earlier about somebody saying something to you and you had to kind of hold yourself back. Did anyone ever say after Father Ryan's death, oh, do you wish that he had children?
No.
No. Oh, thank God.
No, because I think there were people when Ryan was first coming to be assigned. His first assignment was at Prince of Peace. And the cardinal had asked him, do you want to be assigned to a place closer to the medical center, or do you want to be assigned a place closer to your family? Because I know they'll be driving you to your treatments.
Oh, yeah.
And so it ended up being Prince of Peace, which we were delighted, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. And they're such a huge parish. They're one of the biggest ones in the archdiocese.
Yes.
And so they need their 3 priests that are there. And to have somebody coming in that was known to be brand new and to be on treatment, for his newly diagnosed metastasis, there were folks who were just like, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? How is he going to help us? They were just trying to figure out the logistics of it. How would it be possible? But also there were those that were saying, well, we're just going to have to care for him like a mother. And so what turned into it was all a big test, I guess, and another challenge that's not, normal for a parish to have to deal with. And the way he came in, people talk about it. That's one of the great things about the movie is they interviewed so many people at Prince of Peace and at Faustina.
Yeah.
He did his pastoral year at St. Anthony de Padua in the Woodlands. He did his diaconate at Faustina, as you well know. And he did his, of course, his priestly 2 years at Prince of Peace. So when the Archdiocese decided to do the movie, that was where the filmmakers started at those 3 parishes. The amount of footage that they have of interviews of people who signed up on Sign Up Genius to want to tell their story, the culmination of all their stories is basically what a huge blessing it was for him to be here.
Oh, yeah.
So that is such a dominating opinion that anybody who had a different opinion of, wanting to ask about the children, probably wouldn't have the courage to ask me because they would know what my answer would be.
I mean, at Faustina, if you don't mind me telling you this story.
No.
So it was that retreat I was talking about earlier when my wife and I, we volunteered with the teenagers. And so we were, doing things behind the scenes, and it was time for adoration.
Oh.
And so he brings Jesus up and all the kids are kneeling and everyone's praying. And my wife, she tells this story all the time. Like, she's like, okay, this is what we have next. Let's put this stuff, let's get this stuff ready. So she's shuffling around in the back, trying to be as quiet as possible. And Father Ryan comes up to her and says, Jesus is here. And she said, it's time for me to be Mary, not Martha. She said, that's my moment with Father Ryan, the Martha Mary moment. She said she'd never forget that moment. She's like, Jesus is here. That's all he had to say to her. And,
God, sweetheart.
Beautiful. Just tears me up just thinking about that moment that they had together. And for me, it was just watching him play basketball with the teenagers. And yeah, he was such a blessing.
And it's not about, as it's not about if you're out there playing basketball. It's not about what you're doing. It's that you're doing something. Mm-hmm. And I don't care if you're 80 years old, if you're present, if you're talking to them, if you're looking them in the eye and you're present and you see them, like I see you.
Yes.
Then kids, that's all they want.
Yeah, they just want to be seen. And
they want to be seen, they want to be loved, and they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And I think Ryan felt that the priesthood was something bigger than himself, and he wanted to be a part of it.
Now, when did you kind of get the feeling that, his health might not bounce back?
Never.
Really?
The day he went to a coma, I felt, it was always going to be a challenge, but all of us were going to keep trying, and the odds were never good, very, very low probability of getting through it, but there are new treatments being formed all the time.
Yeah.
And the issue with experimental treatments is the time lag. And we had situations in Pennsylvania. My mom passed away in February of 21. My brother passed away 3 weeks later. Then Ryan, that kind of distracted us a little bit from moving treatments. And I don't know if we could have got them any faster, but I feel that, if you're not pushing on experimental type stuff, it can slow down and you can miss the window that it'll help you.
Uh-huh.
We had other things to try to get through, but I guess, I told Ryan before the last time we were able to speak to him, he said, "Dad, it's terminal." And I said, "Ryan, that's why we're doing other things." And he kind of went,
Yeah.
So.
And as a family member or parent or anything, you can't second guess what you did, woulda, coulda, shoulda, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you try to, you say, well, you don't even want to go lessons learned for if it happens again sometime. You don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
But I am confident that Ryan he had his mission. He knew what it was. David Michael Moses has said, Father David Michael has said, he had his life in perfect order. His priorities were in perfect order. And yeah. So I was holding the camera. There's a scene in the movie where Ryan's in the ER in a bed waiting for people to come in and go, and he said, "Mom, I want to do a little video right now." And so I held the camera for him, and that's when he's talking on those little clips that are in the movie, just had it on his heart that he wanted to reach out to the community. And one of them was a month before he died, and the other one was just a few days. So he was at peace with the whole thing. I think we were still, wondering if there was something else we could do, just because we wanted him to be a priest longer. We wanted our son.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all praying for him as well.
Yeah, the world was praying for him.
We were, oh, goodness. I was going back and forth in emails with him about, wanting to have him on the show, not because he was sick or anything like that, but he was, part of the same Faustina family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to check in with him, just, to get him on the show as well. And then he said, well, my voice isn't that good. He said, maybe when it gets better. And I said, oh yeah, sure. Just let us know, and then you hear that it's getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course,
yeah,
we were all still praying, holding vigil. And then we get the news and,
yeah,
just try to deal with it, as a community.
At one point in time, I was saying, I think in times like this, some people keep their circumstances to themselves. And, everybody deals with things differently.
Yes.
And I respect that. But for us, we just tried to think of anybody on the planet that we could ask to pray for him. You know, we were just any prayer group. If you've got prayer groups and Bible studies and whatever, would you please pray for this priest? And that story spread. I heard of stories in California. During the next year, there's a tradition at A&M that the people who died the previous year, it's a muster, and all the Aggies that died the year before are honored. And like you might have a local Aggie group, they have these musters all over the United States, or all over the world, actually. And on this certain day, you meet wherever you are with other Aggies, and you honor those that have passed.
Okay.
And you bring forth the names of those people that you knew that had passed that year. And evidently, in California, there were people meeting that mentioned his name. There were people who said to me, "Oh, my cousin brought up his name in California," or, different places across the United States. And you go, really? So folks were praying for him who never met him.
Yeah.
Just that there's this young priest, and let's pray for him.
Different religions, even.
Yeah, different religions. We had our next door neighbor who's Baptist. His church was praying for him. And why not? We're all in the same business, trying to get to heaven.
Yeah.
So I just encourage families that when you are going through some sort of tragedy, suffering, anything, illness, whatever it happens to be, that you're reaching out, asking people for not only assistance, whatever it might be, physical or whatever it might be, but prayer. People are so honored to be asked to pray for you. And you might think you're bothering them, but my friend Peggy said to me, "Susan, you are not bothering me. It is a grace for me to help, to pray with you. You are denying me this grace if you don't let me pray with you."
Yes. I mean, we've had some friends go through difficulty, my wife and I. Why didn't you tell us we could be praying for you? Yeah. I guess it was kind of a blessing in disguise that COVID kind of hit.
Yes.
So that you had all that streaming of the masses that he said as well. So that's all documented, a lot of his homilies. I mean, I think that was a huge blessing in disguise.
Go ahead.
100%. I am, got my own opinions about COVID and everything else. But that is one good thing that came out of it was the content, the beautiful Catholic content, and Ryan is part of that beautiful Catholic content.
I mean, like our family, we started a weekly prayer thing, and we were praying for Father Ryan during the whole thing, and we've kept it going. Just the prayer group. Yeah, so that's another great thing. We meet every week and we pray the rosary online, and with relatives from around the world. It's fantastic. It's one of those blessings in disguise.
Not a doubt.
Oh.
Did you know when Ryan was asked by Father Gerald at Prince of Peace, everybody was getting trained up to do the Latin Mass at Prince of Peace. And it was during the COVID time, and so they didn't have altar servers. They needed to be trained up to do the Latin Mass. None of the other masses were having altar servers, and so they trained up altar servers, and these guys were with Ryan a lot. Training up. They'd come earlier, and the older ones would help the younger ones, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. Well, several of those guys who are now 5 years older than they were then. He's been dead for almost 3 years, but they were young at the time. But some of them are now in college. And when one of them left to go to Baylor, Ryan said to him, "Now, when you go up there, I want you to start a rosary, a walking rosary." Well, it's still going on.
Wow.
And that young man is a senior now, and it's still going on.
Wow.
So we just, like you said, it is a good Catholic practice, right? It's a good practice, spiritual practice to do, and why would we stop it? Yeah.
Has anyone ever talked to you about, the possibility of a Saint Ryan Stawaisz?
We're open.
Yes, there is a couple of actually that we have a Q&A after every showing of Love God's Will, and we allow the audience to ask questions, and that's come up 3 times now in the conversations. And Ray said, well, we only need a couple of miracles, and
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years is that?
That's the window kind of thing, I
Okay.
guess. After they die, I guess you can make an exception. Popes have made exceptions and done it sooner, but we have heard a lot of stories. There have been a few stories that are considered that I referenced them to I referred them to a priest and said maybe this needs to be documented. You know, so yeah.
Wow.
There was one girl that was an athlete. She was actually a junior Olympian in Houston, and she had several injuries, and she wasn't able to practice. She had too much pain, and she was really concerned that she wouldn't be able to continue with her endeavor. And she spoke to a priest a couple of days before Ryan's funeral, and he said, well, she was asking him for prayer. And he said, well, come on over here. And her whole family was there, and they stepped aside. She was the last one in line. This particular priest was leaving that parish, and so everybody was asking for prayer. And he said, well, let's step over here and let's ask my friend Father Ryan. He's getting ready to have his funeral on Tuesday. Let's ask him to help you. You know, ask him to ask Jesus to help you. And evidently, during that week, she lost her pain. She doesn't have her pain anymore, and now she's competing. And, you know, this particular priest asked her to get things documented, you know, in the ways that you document. So
Yes.
I don't know, but, you know, I'm sure people have suggested different things to me, and I say, isn't the life of a saint tested on their heroic courage? And isn't it tested on how they brought people to Christ? And aren't we all supposed to be saints doing that same thing? So
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So whether or not,
Yeah.
Wow.
In the movie, he actually has a point where he was in an interview, and he was saying he admires so much the lives of the saints, and that how we're called to be saints, and that he was lamenting at the time of, because it was after he had been re-diagnosed with cancer, I think, and he was lamenting, saying, and I just kind of, you know, I'm kind of concerned that I won't be able to live like that, you know. And you watch him and you go, oh, buddy, you have no idea. If you were here now, well, of course, you know about all this.
Yeah.
But, you know, and he would not want anything done, any kind of anything done about him if it didn't lead people to Christ.
Yeah.
So I think he's okay with it.
When did the first talks of a movie being made? When did you first hear about?
Well, Father McNeely spoke to us probably right after his passing.
It was about a year and a half ago. It was the November after he passed in 21. And we were at a gathering, some kind of dinner, and he came over and said, hey, I just wanted to ask you, would you guys be open to the idea of us just making like a little documentary to put on our website for, you know, the purpose of vocations, just on the vocations website? And we said, yeah, that'd be fine. I'm sure Ryan would be okay with that. And then as they interviewed people, and of course they asked us for old home movies, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, because we had a big box of them, but we hadn't looked at them in 25 years. It was that old dinosaur camcorder, you know, that you brought everywhere with you.
Yes.
And Ray would say, why are you videoing this? And well, some of those videos are now in the movie. But they actually converted all of those and have given them back to us. So now we can actually show our grandkids.
Oh,
We're so excited about that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. So it just snowballed into this
58-minute movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
It originally was just supposed to be a little video that they were going to put on the
7
vocation. 7-minute video.
7-minute video, and the producers, they basically said, you know, this was just a small little project they were going to do, and then once they started looking at the footage and they had the interviews, they basically went back to Father McNeely and said, this can be a lot bigger.
Oh, yeah.
And it should be. And they start showing him stuff, and he felt it should continue. And then we talked about it, and yeah, it just kept going then.
Yeah.
How long was the whole production process?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half.
They've been working at it so much. They're living. There's two film producers, Jesse and Samela. We love them so much. And Garrett lives in Pennsylvania. He's going to art school. And he did a lot of the photography. He'd come in and do some of the photography and a lot of the editing. And her mother, Samela's mother, tells us that she would make their breakfast, lunch, and dinner and say, "How's it going, girls? It's late at night. How's it going?" "Oh, we're with Father Ryan. We're with Father Ryan, Mom. Can't come out yet." And this was a story for months and months and months. So we didn't know about any of that. We just got interviewed right at the beginning. We had a 4.5-hour interview right at the beginning. They came out a couple of other times to video some of his vestments and different personal articles and things like that. And,
yeah, get some B-roll.
Try to get some other stuff and follow up with things and follow up questions. And and all of a sudden they said, we kept kind of asking, can you give us some lead time? Because I was telling you, I don't know when it's going to come out. I think it'll be soon, but I don't know when it's going to come out. And we thought, well, maybe January, February, we don't know. And then all of a sudden it was, okay, we're ready. Let's try to get some sponsors because it's an independent film. And so in order to get it into theaters, you have to sponsor each showing,
Yes.
But we really thought that going into a theater would the best way to go at the beginning because it's a neutral place where anybody can come.
Yeah.
And you can bring coworkers and friends, which we're finding that at every showing. And when they see it up on the big screen, even people who knew Ryan very, very well, personal friends of ours who've known him for his life, they go, "Oh my, on the big screen, that blew me away."
Oh,
so
gosh. I haven't seen it yet.
I know.
I don't know how I'm going to prepare myself because just watching the trailer, I cried. Just watching the trailer. I said, "Oh gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this
You'll
movie."
be able to because it's not, now you have to bring your tissue, okay? But it is you're going to laugh and you're going to cry.
Okay.
There are times in the movie, many times in the movie, where the entire theater just starts laughing, roaring, because it's life. And there's joys and sorrows in life, right? And the filmmakers did just an amazing job. Ray and I look at it and we go, that is a beautiful movie. It's just, wow.
And connected.
Yeah, so connected.
And was it planned that it would come out during Lent?
I don't know if they planned it during Lent, but we had a conversation with Prince of Peace, with Father Tom Ponzini and Deacon Bill and several other people there on staff. When we knew that it was ready, okay, we wanted them to be they're kind of the ones that were going to kick it out, right? The first showings were going to come out of there. And that's what Father Tom Ponzini said. Can we make it in Lent? Can we start it off in Lent? Because I think it would be perfect. Some of the homilies that Ryan did, especially the one for Good Friday, that they have on video from COVID times.
Yes.
There's several parts of that particular homily that are in the film. The way Father Richard McNeely puts it, the homily for Good Friday is the Super Bowl of homilies. He said every priest, they put their heart and soul into that one because that's the one that everybody's going to be at.
Yes, yeah, even lapsed Catholics come to church for that.
They come to Good Friday. And he said, I'm not surprised at all that this one was such a powerhouse one.
Is that the one that they have on YouTube?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I've watched that how many times?
Oh yes, yes.
I had to kind of stop in the middle.
Yes.
A couple of times, especially the first time I saw it. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Wow. And then, are you showing up at all of the screenings
so far?
Okay.
Let's leave it like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So far we're doing it.
Okay.
We have 20 some odd showings in March.
Uh-huh.
And
The plan is.
The plan is.
Okay.
And half of April's done. We're already into May, with people asking. The dates are rolling out into May.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be up at Dallas when Dallas goes for a couple of viewings.
Okay.
And A&M, we're super excited. Ryan, of course, was an Aggie.
Oh, gosh. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
You can come with us if you want. But they're going to be, get this, they've allowed us to show it at the St. Mary's new JP2 Student Center that seats 450 students.
Wow.
So we have it listed up there in April, beginning of April. One of my friends works for Domino's and at corporate level, and she's trying to get sponsorship for pizza, and make it a big event. They're going to have a panel of different priests, religious orders after, just if they want to ask questions.
Wow.
They're just really going to town up there.
Wow.
The vocations director in Austin's super excited. He was talking about wanting to bring it to UT.
Uh-huh.
And so we've had requests from Tulsa. Of course, that's Bishop Condola, who was there as the pastor of St. Mary's when Ryan was up there.
Uh-huh.
But people in Canada, we used to live in Australia. My best friend in Perth, Australia, is saying, Susan, can we bring it here? So who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows where it's going?
I know a few of my relatives, the ones that, we prayed for him during those Zoom prayer meetings. Yeah, they I'm sure they would be interested in watching somehow. I mean, it's, wow. Unbelievable how it's snowballed. Did you expect that this many showings would be sold out?
No way.
Because when you go onto that website, sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out, it's just a few that aren't sold out.
Yeah, but keep in mind, too, for all your listeners, that if one shows up sold out, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be tickets available. Keep trying, because there are people whose, their lives change, and they call up Palomita Films and say, okay, you can have our 8 tickets, and then they put them back online. So sometimes there's viewings, but also every day. Today we just added 4 showings in Bay City, down west of Lake Jackson. They're working on dates for Clear Lake and Nassau Bay area. Father Rick from True Shrine just texted me this morning and said, can we get this movie over here? And Father Preston had requested it out at his place, is why Bay City's going. So there's not going to be a shortage of people being able to see it. They might have to travel a little bit, but they can also try to get it themselves. And, there's a button on the website where it says, if you're interested in, bringing it to your area, press this button, give us your details, and you never know.
Wow. So I guess it's gonna do the rounds first. And is there any talk about it being on streaming or on physical media like DVD or Blu-ray?
Yes. So later in the year, they were trying to get it out into theaters for the big screen experience first. Later on in the year, probably the end of summer or like that, they probably go into churches where churches will be able to show it to their any group they want, right?
Okay.
Any event that they want. Right now, we got a request from Father David Michael Moses is putting on the Fullness of Truth conference. It's the Holy Family Conference down in Galveston, the end of April, and he wants to show it in that conference. So we never know what it's going to be. And then after sort of the flurry of everything, it will come out on streaming, on YouTube.
What would you say to somebody who's about to go into the theater? What would you, like, before they go into the theater, what would you kind of whisper into their ear if you could?
Pay attention. They have woven Ryan's message, like you said about the cross, the intersecting cross, and his comment about about what can I do in a time where you feel like you're out of control or things are out of control. If it's because of COVID, because of health, because of things, and the message is there, and it's to be faithful, it's to trust, and And placing any suffering at the foot of the cross is a way of lessening your burden. And I think through that, and I guess being a part of it, being present, and it's at the moment. You don't have to worry about tomorrow or the next day, but be present at the moment. And it's just a great story.
It's not only his story, but it's all the stories of all the people who witnessed and watched him.
Yes.
And watched him live out his story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beautiful part too, is the way that what they picked up on, what they learned from him.
Yeah.
How things altered the way they did things, how it altered maybe their children's life and how they noticed it change. We've had a lot of families there, a lot of young kids there. They're so happy to be there.
Oh.
They look at the home movie parts and they're so beautiful and they're so fun and they're so like, oh, look, I'm that age, when I was 7 years old or whatever it is. And it's a lot of laughing and throwing up leaves in piles and, sledding down hills and on snow. And so it's just a life, right? It's just a life, but it's a life that you're able to see how God was present in different things early, and how he teaches us things at different parts of our life, and then how he weaves them together in who you are as you grow up. And it was kind of a reflective story. He used to do this. Well, now God's helping him do it again when he's older.
Oh.
He used to play drums when he was young, just in middle school. And then he played Concert for Life for David Michael Moses, for Father David. Little bitty things connected that, like Ray's talking about, there's so much detail that every time I've watched it, which now I've watched it 4 times, I don't sit there all the time. Sometimes I take a break.
Oh,
it's a lot.
It's hard. Yes.
But every time I watch it, I notice something else. And I went, how did I miss that the first time? So
there's a message for you in that movie.
I don't want people to think that it's just about the life of a priest. I mean, it's about life, Yeah.
And they wove it to where you can put yourself in there, and you've had those experiences, and it's like, well, this is how he managed that experience, and I might not have managed it that way.
Oh,
and but it and when Sue said, and for young people who you can see the progression from a youngster through his life, and they can see where they're at in that process, and they can see, the choices he made and how it got him there.
Yeah.
His 4 friends from Scotland, when we lived in Aberdeen, they actually all came to Houston, and then they all went to A&M, and then they all became engineers. They all lived in the same house. And all of them are Protestant. And all of them are interviewed in the movie. And they talk about the Bible study that they were all in together, and how beautiful it was that they talked to each other about their differences, but then they all loved each other, and how great it was to talk about things. So they're all in the movie. And so there's all these beautiful Protestants talking about having their best friend being a Catholic priest. He was going to be an engineer, and now he's a Catholic priest. So you do look at it, and you see a priest on the cover of the Love God's Will, the poster, right? The poster. And you say, well, I wonder what that's about. Well, I probably won't go to that. That's a Catholic thing, but it's just a life thing. So
what would you say to a parent whose son or daughter is entering religious life? What advice would you give to them?
She does it all the time, so this shouldn't be a hard one.
First of all, I say, pray for your children. We should pray for our children anyway, right? But
yes.
What they're choosing to do is countercultural. There will be no one that they meet except for those in seminary or religious life who are going to be saying, "Attaboy, good job."
Mm-hmm.
Most people they meet are going to look at them and their clerics or whatever and go, yeah, whatever. There's not a whole lot of respect out there.
Yeah.
I think that's changing. I think people are starting to realize some of the stuff out there isn't what it was cracked up to be, and they're trying to find something authentic and real and peaceful and loving. And I think parents, now that their children are starting into seminary or religious order, they have to sort of hand them over to God. This is now the time where your prayers are amazing. Do send them, encouraging notes and, hopefully conversations on a regular basis that's not every day. They do. They're growing up just like they'd be in college or anything, and you want them to become adults.
Yes.
Strong, holy men that are independent thinkers and all that. And as much as we want to know what's going on with them, because we have no clue what seminary life is like, right? We still have to respect the process. And I think, too, that being okay with rearranging whatever your family schedule has been up until that point. They're not going to, you're not going to have vacations together, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
We do Father Richard's doing a great job doing, he calls it a real fancy name. I call it boot camp. In the summer before
for the parents?
No. For the seminarians before they enter into seminary.
Okay.
That summer before, they actually do this propriaduic or something. I get that wrong all the time. And they actually be a group of seminarians or pre-seminarians that will go to a parish. He's got 3 places across the archdiocese that they link up with the parish. They live there as a community. And they get up and pray together and all that and have meals and everything and do work together and get to know each other like a brotherhood. And it's basically setting up fraternity, but it's also the seminary life. And they do this little boot camp, and some of them stay on and some of them discern out right then and there. But at the end of it, they have a meal with the parents and them. And there's kind of a closeout, like a graduation of boot camp, kind of like. And they invite some parents of priests and seminarians to go to that and act like a panel, a Q&A panel.
Okay. And
a lot of those questions that they ask, the parents ask us, I've been on all of them so far, and they're just amazing. I've been asked, so our Christmas vacation that we have planned this Christmas, so will they be able to get off for that? And you say, maybe not, Maybe they will. But a lot of times during Christmas, they'll be serving at a parish because that's what their job is going to be.
Yes.
On-the-job training, right? Maybe they'll have a retreat set up in January. And if they just get their sons and daughters to give them a little bit of heads up on what the actual schedule is, I can't say that they know what the schedule is. There's a lot of times they don't know what the schedule is. But when you do, if you can just give us a heads up, that's a little helpful to us in planning if we can. But basically, they're becoming individuals from the day they enter seminary. And that's part of the adjustment that parents have.
What would you say to parents or even somebody who's struggling with cancer?
Don't for a minute let despair enter into your house. Ryan and I made a pact that the moment we were feeling down or the moment that we felt like, oh, me, poor me, or, oh, gosh, where's this going to go? Or, oh, I'm so sad, or, oh, I'm going to die, or whatever it is. You don't know when you're going to die. There's no expiration date on your foot. People have said that before. And you never know the life that God has for you. And despair is not a virtue, right? It's technically a sin because we're turning our face away from God, right? Who is hope.
Yes.
And So we would technically stay on each other very hard. And if we saw something happening, we would rebuke Satan and say, get the hell out of our life, and ask God to come and fill us. And there was never a moment that we experienced that in our house, despair. That would be my number one thing. The other thing I would say is surround yourself with holy friends, and tell them what you need. Tell them what you're going through. Not from a poor me perspective, because nobody can stand that for a long period of time. I can't stand that for a long period of time. And to make sure, from a medical perspective, eat your fruits and vegetables and get second opinions.
Definitely second opinions.
Yeah, sometimes third.
Now, I understand your grandson is named Ryan Stawaisz as well.
Yes.
When did you find out that he was going to be named Ryan?
So Ross is our oldest son, and he's married to a lovely lady named Gabby. And they came over to our house, and they said, we have something we'd like to ask you. And she was pregnant at the time. I don't know how far along I think she was 6 months pregnant or 7 months pregnant at the time. They had found
the time where Father Ryan died? Or this was after?
Actually, she was pregnant when he was dying.
Okay.
And she was around sick. It was right after he died, actually. She was still 7 months pregnant or so.
Okay.
And they came over to the house for dinner, and they said that they waited just a little bit after he died. I think they knew it would be way too emotional. And they asked us, we have a question. We wondered if you would be okay with the idea. We know it's going to be a boy, and would it be okay with you if we named him Ryan? And I just looked at Ray, and he looked at me, and we went, sure. So we thought, oh my goodness, how special that is.
I know. I mean, when we heard that, it just pulls at your heartstrings.
Yeah.
It's going to be another.
I know. And I know. And every time you call his name, of course,
Of course.
Yeah, hey, Ryan, come on, man. But he is he's over 2 years old now. He's a true Stawaisz, because like Father Ryan and like his dad and like his grandpa, he is a super, he loves to work on things. He's got his own little tool chest, and he's working on lawnmowers, or he's looking under the cars while they're doing car work, or he's building things. We've got a gigantic sand pile. Ray got him a sand pile in our backyard. He's got an excavator, and he gets on there and digs his sand. And he just loves the outdoors so much, just like Father Ryan did.
Wow. How old is he now?
He's 2, and he was 2 in October.
That's fantastic.
And his little sister, Teresa, who was pregnant, in the movie, Gabby's pregnant with Teresa, and she's now 11 months, and she's walking and on fire, and so we're just loving our grandchildren.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming, to our area and sitting down and telling this story. I know it might have been really difficult, kind of reliving some of it. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for you, but for me, it was, my wife had to give me a hug before this, and she said, it's going to be okay. She says, it's going to be good.
Oh, sweetie.
So thank you so much. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people who want to give you a hug after the movie.
Oh, gosh. Right? It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. They all want to share stories. They all want to say thank you. And there's one guy that came up last night, actually, that said, how can I pray for you? I said, oh, man. I said, well, can you please pray that everyone that comes to the movie, gets something out of it? They're touched, their heart in some way. And I said, how can I pray for you? And he said, well, you can pray for me that I continue to discern my vocation. And I went, yay!
Oh, that's fantastic.
So we never know.
So you have something there at the table right now that you were showing us earlier. You're showing it to me and Herm. It's a coloring book. And I understand there's a story behind this coloring book.
Yes. So this coloring book is actually, I'm going to let Ray open it up. There is a young gal named Paz who had drawn and made all these beautiful, beautiful pictures of saints. And she created this coloring book, and she was getting ready to go into discernment for religious life. And before she entered convent was right around the time that Father Ryan had died.
Okay.
And she found us and said, I have this. I would like to give you the rights to it because I have no idea what to do with it. I'm getting ready to go into convent. And maybe something will come up that you can use it for. And so then when the movie happened, we said, oh, well, maybe this is it. And we reached out to her, and she actually recreated it and put him on the front cover. She had him in the back. She already had him in the story, in the coloring book. And she had dedicated the book actually to our family. I think that he was her spiritual director when he was living. And so we're super excited. It's just kind of a memorabilia thing that we have at the movies for people if they'd like to purchase one.
That's fantastic. Wow.
We're so happy. She actually put under his name in his listing in the book, Love God's Will. And that was before the movie was even thought of.
Wow.
And so here we are, divine providence.
That's fantastic. Do let us know if there is like a solid movement for Saint Father Ryan Stawaisz.
Yeah.
Let us know and we'll help to get the word out there. We'll put in our prayers and everything as well because, I mean, this has snowballed into something unbelievable.
Well, folks need to know, they ask us all the time, so if you don't mind me saying, if folks want to go to the movie, they go to Palomita Films. It's PALOMITA films.com. At that website is where you see all the showings, where they are, the whole list. If it's sold out, do not plan to go to that. There are availabilities, and then you actually buy your tickets online.
Yes.
And then all you do is show up at the movie at the right time, usually a half hour before, because it's not reserved seating. It's first come, first serve.
Okay.
And then there's going to be a list of names of people who've bought tickets right at a check-in desk. You just tell them your name and walk on in.
Okay. All right. Because I was wondering how that was going to go because I haven't seen it. By the time this comes out, I will have seen it. And we've been posting links and photos and everything like that. So just keep checking in.
Yes. Because
something might be sold out. It might pop back up again.
Yes.
So that's what you're saying. Okay.
And what you see that day, probably there will be more showings the next day.
I have seen that.
That somebody has,
that they've created more and reserved more theaters.
And it's totally dependent on people wanting to sponsor another showing. And if they want to do that, they go to the website, palomitafilms.com, and there's a place where you can say, hey, I'd like to bring it to my area.
Yes.
Click on this button, and then you put all your information in, throw in a comment down at the bottom. Or if you just want to donate to the actual film process so that they can make more great films like this. We're actually trying to go to the Eucharistic Congress. Somebody recommended, why don't you guys go and have a booth at the Eucharistic Congress? We went, what? And so we have no idea if they still have tables available to just, I don't know. We never know what avenue God's opening up for us.
Thank you so much. God bless you and your family.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you. Really appreciate you having us, Rudy. God bless your ministry.
Thank you.